Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just back with another live stream. Just check and see if some people are around. Gonna go through the usual protocol. Talk a bit about what's going on with the debates. Go through a chapter in the Bible. Very trustworthy source for edification in these days. And just wrap up, and just see if anybody's around, has questions, thoughts, feedback, any other commentary on really any topic. So, what's going on? So flat earth, ball earth, Sly Sparkane's test. I just kind of skimmed through his summary, I guess, of his results. But hey, Mies Kang, what's up, man? Good to see you, bro. I'm going to go through 1 Corinthians chapter 6. So I did a little bit of it recently. I'm just going to kind of expound on it. But very, very good. I would say all the letters, that Paul writes, I'll be honest, I've never been one to sort of focus on those in my sort of Christian journey. I tend to focus on the Gospels and anything in red letters, but there's a lot of good stuff, in those letters. So I'll go through that today. Yeah, good to see you, Mies Kang. I know. Good to see you, man. I recognize your name. I believe you're a flat earther. Welcome, man. JJ, good to see you, buddy. So yeah, Sly Sparkane posts his results. I supported it, the test. It was small contribution financially. I mean, I like seeing people do stuff. I think even if it's deceptive, and he didn't really sound like he was going to be overly deceptive, and so he published the results, and inconclusive. There were leaks in the setup, and it just inconclusive. And so he did say that there's some lessons learned, and he's going to redo it and all that kind of stuff. The whole setup just seemed really strange. Like the location that he picked, I don't know if it was just the way I was visualizing it. It just looked really bumpy, and I don't understand why somebody would pick that kind of an environment. And again, just by the individual's name, Sly, I'm like, I don't understand why these people use names. Again, I believe that this is spiritual, but I just find it hilarious. Like, somebody should help them with their public relations. Maybe don't use the word Sly or Toady Lily or stuff like that. But and the rumpus. it's like comedy, but he chalked it up as to favoring the globe, but inconclusive. So I thought that in and of alone, that conclusion shows where their heart is, because no one would state that something's inconclusive but give it a slight bias. If a scientific test or an experiment is inconclusive, it's inconclusive. You don't go up to your thesis advisor and be like, yeah, I mean, I'm close enough. It's it's not, may work, may not. The bridge might be good, might not be. This is nonsense. So he should have had what they like to talk about, intellectual honesty. They always use that term, not honesty about everything else going on in the world, all the perversions that are going on from A to Z, but intellectual honesty. A person who is truly intellectually honest would say that the test was inconclusive and just leave it at that. Very, very poor scholarship, in my opinion. I don't know how somebody could say that it's inconclusive and then follow that up with a statement that it's favors one. I mean, there's leaks in the setup and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's good in general that people are doing tests, and I'm still, open, and I've been having some dialogues with, a couple people here and there, chipping away at it, at a test that I would feel comfortable with using GPS and stuff like that. So, I'm going to keep kind of working on it. And then once maybe a group of us, people that I actually care about their opinion, and I write up a white paper and document the test and all that kind of stuff, and then look for the funding, which I don't think actually would be that expensive for something that I'm proposing. It wouldn't even necessarily be that time intensive either. But what Sly was doing was difficult because it's time intensive. It's fairly costly because you have to buy all those tubes, and then it's littered with potential errors because you have one leak in the system. I mean, the shape of the earth changes. You don't want that. And then it involves optics, which is what we don't want. The whole point of this, in my opinion, is that we need to get something that has little to no dependence on optics, because that's the whole thing that we're debating almost every day on these Hangouts. And really, in my opinion, the last thing the ballers have left is obstruction bottom up. Gravity's nonsense. That's very, very easy to debunk. And I don't think ballers actually are comfortable with gravity either, because they don't really know what it is. Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't know what it is. So I think the last thing is bottom up obstruction, but then their sort of last thing and their main sort of, thing in their apologetics toolkit, this obstruction bottom up, requires that water form a bump. It requires water to form like a hump, a bulge, which go to any lake or any water body ever, and you will not see that. You can look at that all day long. It will never form a bulge. It's like water does not behave that way. It cannot. So we know people who are, sort of, aware of these things, being honest that there's another reason for that bottom up obstruction, and it's purely based on optics and the atmosphere. So they're very, their most sort of prominent feature for the ball earth is actually the thing that's hurting them the most, because it's non-physical. Yeah, it's non-physical. You cannot make water do that permanently in any kind of permanent way. So, that's why pretty much every test that I suspect would come out from the baller side would involve auto levels, theodolites, cameras, and all that kind of stuff. You don't see them getting into like physical things, just stuff related to, physical structure, tying something to a boat, having it sail out. You can actually like see, the straight line versus, the water body and stuff like that, and so that's not surprising. If we continue to see ballers continue to only push tests that involve, optical equipment being the sort of last judge, the decider, the measurer of the curve, don't be surprised at all. And I'm not either. I just think that for me personally, I can learn more about, the tricks that they're using. But this bottom up obstruction, to me, there's enough images out there that are absolutely absurd on a ball earth. Like, they're just literally absurd. So, Chris Berry and others, Ranty's been doing that for a long time. And then once people get a drone involved, which I think will be useful, because once you have a boat going away down the line, but you have accountability side to side, and show that the boat is not actually tilting or reorienting itself or, in anything like that. It's just interacting with the water the exact same way throughout its whole journey away from the coast. And then if you have a drone or really just another angle recording it simultaneously, their story will fall apart. So that's what I see going on. I think that, again, from a spiritual perspective, it's sort of looking more and more that we may not get a conclusive test. I just don't see the desire for it from both sides, really. And there may, because again, like at this point, and I'm not making fun of anybody, but because again, I'm part of the whole issue, but it just seems like it's theater, and I think that that's fine. It's not changing. The vibration is not changing. People just want debates and explain this, explain that. We have people who barely, got through high school trying to educate us, people with multiple degrees, on optics, and I'm just like, that's just the way it is. I'm not trying to be rude, but, people have to like sort of know their place, in this whole thing. And the other people who claim to be experts, we don't even know what they look like, who they are, what they work for, why do they come on these Hangouts every single day? and all this kind of stuff. So, I think that there's going to be enough images taken, over the next, while, because there's more and more interest in it. And the cool thing that the sort of luxury that we have as flat earthers is we just need one piece of evidence that absolutely can never work on a ball, and it will sit there as a data point for forever. It's like it'll just sit there. Like they can keep coming up with their ball earth evidences, things in the sky, and like stars and all that kind of stuff. So that's they can keep doing that, and keep using their evidences, but we just need one, that will totally not work in that geometry. And so, if it's not done already, I mean, John D's posted another video recently, reaffirming that his tests are showing that there's no curvature in the water, which we all know is obvious, but it's just going to be more of that. It's, again, if you have like 50 different laser tests over time in different parts of the world and all that, I mean, you can't say that those 50 different lasers are experiencing the exact same conditions to have it gently curve over the earth. And so, they're going to run out of excuses at some point, in my opinion, purely just by the number of data points. So I'll just see what's going on in the chat here. A builder's laser level would be perfect. Yeah, I mean, I just think, I know. They just need more than one. It's like I'm actually not against using optics or things like that, but have multiple things to pin down the geometry. Have something going this way. That's why I recommended in Sly's test, if you can convert those levels to the ground, transfer them to the ground, then we can look at it from different angles. You could literally have something fly over the top. You could have just have it there as a landmark for a little while for people to come and look at it and assess it their own way. But somehow, allow people to assess those water levels with multiple tools. And I think diversity of tools to me is a very, very important thing, and really, really reduces the error or the ambiguous result. Steven Steen, I have no idea why you're here, dude. You just seem like somebody who's, I don't even know what your motivation is, dude. So I'm going to pretty much ignore everything you say. Yeah, I mean, Mies Kang, they're literally hijacking our surface, because our surface of flat Earth is what creates, that level rising, up. And so they would argue that, a very, very big ball would do the same. But, they're sort of, stealing our thunder. But if they want to think that that's bulgy water doing that, and that like the bulgy water only shows up once in a while, not every time, I mean, that's up to them. I think that you can ask anybody, just without asking them what the shape of the earth is, can you make water bend? And they know that will be nonsensical. Like their mind can't go there. You'd literally have to warp your mind. You'd have to bend space-time, according to them, to make it do that. And just that word or that phrase, bending of space-time, is completely absurd. A PLS 180 laser is what I'm going to use. Yeah, JJ, I didn't know you were doing tests, buddy. That's cool, man. If you need any help or whatever, just let us know. I like to support when I can. Steven Steen's just a troll. Just ignore him. I think he's kind of playing a role as a flat earther, but he's not worth anybody's time. Like a lot of people on the ball earth side, not worth addressing. But I think this whole discussion earlier today too, with George kind of quizzing a little bit of Red Pill what his background is, just shows how absurd this is. We have been indoctrinated, and then we're being quizzed on how indoctrinated we are as a sign of how credible we are. Like it's absurd. It's like, it's literally asking us to confirm that we're stupid to verify that we're smart. It's like, it's insane, because the modern day education system is a known scam. It's mainstream news is saying, is a college education even worth it? Question mark, rhetorical. They know that it's not worth it. It's absurd to pay that much money to be taught things that any person can go and read out of a book and learn, over time. It's absurd. It's an obvious scam. It's just less of a scam for certain people who are maybe rich or get scholarships and stuff, but it's a joke. It's a college education is a complete joke, because especially even like for electrical engineering that I studied, all the things that one would need to work in electrical engineering, you could do in like a year or two at the most. Just kind of if the concept is taught well, you don't have to keep being reminded of it over and over again. It's just there are just a handful of concepts, that could make one person ready to start, working in the field and do things, and then quote unquote learn on the fly. So that whole thing, again, they're exposing themselves as their heart's not in the right place on everything. It's like, I just wish they would like take the high road on a couple topics, like just don't go shilling for the government on literally every single topic. Just relax on a couple. But they're going full steam ahead. They're full steam ahead on college education's worth it. Money system's okay. Politics is all right. Not that bad. Voting works. It counts. Your vote counts. Our food's not that bad. The air's okay. Corporate America's not that bad. You're just being paranoid. Like it's literally laughable how absurd this is. They're just shilling super duper hard. If they're shilling as hard as those light rays are looming, I'll tell you that. That's the best way to say it. As hard as they're shilling, those rays are looming to show 50 kilometer shore to shore observation. So nonstop shilling, nonstop looming. This is what we got. So I will read 1 Corinthians 6, kind of go through that. And I don't want to, by the way, actually one comment I wanted to make, sorry guys, I gave a few people wrenches and I feel bad now because I didn't even ask them beforehand, but I didn't give people wrenches just so, you have to be distracted and manage the chat box. I would just say pretty much let everything go. I'm not trying to give you guys work or anything like that. I just want those people who literally can be free to talk. And for me, visually, it just highlights what you say because I see the blue wrench. So like my eye goes to that faster. So I'm not trying to, you don't have to like delete people's stuff unless they're saying something offensive to you, obviously. Delete that for sure. But for the most part with me, I kind of know what's going on, as I think all of you guys do know. Like people can say whatever they want. I mean, I've been said that Carlos Pagan, our favorite Christian baller, makes fun of, my family being Hindu, says that I can run a 7-Eleven and all that. And he wants to kill all flat earthers. So, and this is a Christian. So, we even people who are supposed to be on our team, bringing out the fact that we live in a beast system. And, the Bible supports flat earth with hundreds of verses, wants us annihilated. So again, I'm not saying this because like I care or I'm seeking pity, because I'm not, but we know what's going on here. People can say whatever they want. I almost want people to insult me to reaffirm that this place is completely absurd. It would weird me out if things started becoming sort of like amicable and the conversation started to be more diplomatic and focused on tests and stuff. That would actually kind of weird me out, and it would be strange. So I don't expect it anymore. And so I think that I'm just sort of catching up to this now. I think a lot of people have known this for a long time. People who've been on, in these sort of hangouts for years now, but yeah, sorry, Miss Kang, my bad, dude. You guys, just do your thing, man. It's just, and if you don't want the wrench either, just let me know. I mean, it's, I guess I didn't realize the sort of YouTube, sort of just the way things are, I guess, in these kind of hangouts. I don't want people to have those and then think that they're in any kind of, allegiance with me or agree with everything I say, because obviously the things that I bring out are not for very many people. And I'm not saying that to be arrogant. It's just the message in this channel, the 5 or 6 quote unquote conspiracy theories that I believe in strongly. There's not many people out there who believe that, and I understand that. And I realize more and more they won't understand it, like today's Mother's Day. And it's a struggle for me in many ways to talk to my own family, because the things that I believe, even a few conspiracies, put a massive chasm between me and the people around me. And, that's just what it is, and so, I think everybody's in their own place, spiritually. And, I would definitely want to respect that. I think that certain people, though, who come to this channel and I've seen regularly, in my opinion, always have an open invite to talk, and to challenge my position, because I know that their heart is in the right place. Yeah, good to see some of the new names. I don't recognize Amber Punk, but good to see you. Seek and Find, good to see you, brother. Steven Steen's a troll. Ignore him. Colorado Carpenters, good to see you, man. And okay. Yeah, I think this sounds sort of, I'm not trying to be like, too sort of strategic about this, but like, if they want to write things that are insane, if they really want to write things in a chat box that are absolutely insane, let them. To me, it's like, I would say the strongest evidence that I have lately for flat Earth is actually just simply the behavior of ball earthers. It doesn't make sense. We're just asking questions. We're questioning. Okay, fair enough. A very, very, large body of science, but we're just asking questions. It's like, if we're not like that out there, that we're going to lead ourselves down a path and lead the entire world astray with, our flat Earth power, and all the money that we have and all that kind of stuff. It's like, this to me is evidence of people wanting us killed and, making fun of us and all that kind of stuff. It's like, it's proof, because like, why would they do that? But I think they sense that, yeah. Oh, Sleeping Warrior, good to see you, man. I think that, because of people like, Sleeping Warrior and Oakley and all those channels, I mean, they, what's left? They have literally picked apart the ball from every single angle, put very, very solid, defenses together for really everything. And a lot of the stuff that is left is just stuff that neither side can verify. It's just people talking about things that, no one can verify. So it's really a non-data point, and it really doesn't matter. It's like us saying, oh, well, yeah, there's like this flat Earth thing going on over there, at the edge or whatever. Just take my word for it. It's like, like there's like a book on the edge of the Earth that says that the Earth is flat. It's like, okay, it's like, it's essentially that, stuff that people non-military without, lots of resources cannot verify. So I think that, the ball is, I'm sure has been dead in a lot of people's minds for a long time, but, it's pretty much done in my mind. I think a good test for the sake of really the flat Earth community ultimately would be good. And, those on the baller side would, who would invest and, would give good feedback and invest, into it, I think would be worthwhile. But, who knows if that will happen. I think that if there's more and more images in particular coming from drones, however, I think that there's going to be enough where people can have intellectual comfort to know that, water cannot bend, at all. So 444 The Truth, good to see you, man. Okay, so I'm going to go through 1 Corinthians 6. This might be a little heavy. I'm kind of slightly mentally moving past flat Earth and into the implications of the Earth being flat and not moving and God existing, and in my opinion, very, very likely the God of the Bible existing and being behind it. And so, I'm going to start with go through 1 Corinthians 6, and it reads, "Dare any of you, having a matter against one another, go to the law before the unjust and not before the saints? Do ye not know that the saints shall judge the world?" So this statement right alone, just by itself, clarifies what it means when we are told not to judge, our brother and sister. We have to judge in a very, very righteous way and very, very carefully, and I think just this whole starting to this chapter, Paul is getting at that judgment is necessary, but it has to be righteous. It has to be pure, and it has to be free of any kind of, conflict of interest. And so judgment, again, is required for us to just go through life, but it has to be done very, very carefully and always requires introspection. Hey, Voin, it's good to see you, man. Okay. Know ye not that ye shall judge angels? How much more things that pertain to this life? So this to me is an incredible thing that really we can't understand. I think that it's looking more and more that this life is a training ground for something else. Hopefully, that's our hope and prayer. Even in the spirit world, individuals will have dominion, responsibilities, and one would think that the manner in which we took care of our responsibilities here on earth will dictate the amount that God could entrust us in the life to come. And I think that to me is really the only thing that makes sense, because he is looking at the way that we handle things. Ultimately, he's narrating the whole thing, but he's putting us in positions and seeing essentially what we'll fall for. What kind of things are we susceptible to fall for that are not righteous? And ultimately, in my opinion, everything that we do that is sinful is not intelligent. It's not smart. It's not good for us. And it's something that, obviously can be redeemed, but we need to think about that kind of stuff in these days, because, there's a lot of deception, around us. There's a lot of, temptation and all that kind of stuff. And we have to be more and more, and I'm speaking to myself, more and more sensitive to our decisions, and the things that we do. And I think the ante is only going to get higher and higher as the days go on, with the amount of evil. Okay. If then ye have judgments of things pertaining to this life, set them to judge who are least esteemed in the church. I speak to your shame. Is it so that there is not a wise man among you? No, not one that shall be able to judge between his brethren. But brother goeth to the law with brother, and that before the unbeliever. So Paul is speaking out of frustration. He's seeing what's going on amongst his people, quarreling, bickering, and they're not able to just figure it out. And then they go to what we would consider now like the Supreme Court or the district courts and sue one another. And this is a very, very different time. It's much more tribal, in these times, but it's similar to what's going on now, and I'm not necessarily the best example of this, but I'm just being very upfront. I'm trying, if somebody comes to me and tells me that I'm still learning about things, I'm still questioning things and all that, it's not my job to sell anything to them, and I'm not the person I'm not responsible for that in that way. So I'm trying to be much more diplomatic and know that, that there's a narrative going on for each individual that, all I can do is share my perspective. And I think that too much quarreling is not good. I think on certain topics that are very, very important, like the mark of the beast, it's important to get that right, because there are immediate consequences. But, on other things, for example, for me, like reincarnation and, who are the biblical Jews and stuff like that, I don't press those too hard, because I don't know those with a 100% certainty. They make sense to me, but, I leave that very much open. And I think just in general, I have to be much better about prioritizing, the doctrines that I won't compromise. And I'm saying that with not just, other spiritual people, but even amongst people close to me. There are certain things that I just will not compromise, about any jokes about like homosexuality, or sexual sin or adultery and all that kind of stuff. I think throughout my life, it's been you just make a joke, ha ha ha, or whatever. But that's not happening anymore. I'll just be totally honest. Like I will ice somebody in my life, even my own parents, if I feel that they are encroaching, on my ability to follow God. That's just the way it is. And again, I'm not saying that I'm a saint, but I'm not leaving wiggle room on certain things. And I would recommend people do that as well. It's interesting here. This is kind of convicting to me. I just thought of this right now in verse 6. But brother goeth to the law with brother, and that before the unbelievers. I'm kind of applying that as well with ball earth and flat earth. I think I'm going to try and spend more time with people that I think are honest and asking questions and not trying to be the smartest person and put people down, which I do on those hangouts, largely when I catch the ballers trying to put us down, and create an environment that doesn't allow us to ask questions. So I get angry. But I want to start spending more time with flat earthers, and come up with tests, and have a quote safe space for us to, share ideas. And Ali B and Seek and Find and others, we've had some good conversations. And I think it's better for me to do that. And it's similar here where it's like, we're going to quote unquote unbelievers, people like the Rumpus. I'm not saying, it's not to throw him under the bus, but it's just, to me, it's becoming more and more obvious that it's a bad strategy. It's we don't sit in the hangouts and just agree with everybody. We challenge one another technically, but I've noticed, even just speaking to people like Ali B and Seek and Find, not to call their names out, but for an hour is much more fruitful than 4-hour hangouts with atheist ballers. So I think it applies very much as well to this day. And so Paul was speaking of something similar to that back in the day. Sorry, I'm going to catch up on the chat. T-Mog. Yeah, Seek and Find, man, anytime, dude. I'm open, bro. You have an open invite anytime on this panel. If science knows it's flat, the motive might be to stop Islam killing everyone, because that's what I think will happen if FE does win. Yeah, I mean, this is a tough thing, Sleeping Warrior. It's a difficult thing to know how this will play out, because in my opinion, if it's proven to be flat and it's broadcast and people embrace it, to me, I don't think there will be an end times. I just think we'd be essentially approaching the kingdom of heaven, because truth will abound. People with common sense, even Fight the Flat Earth, admitted that if we show him that the earth is flat in a rigorous way, he'll believe in God. Like, he'll come to these Bible studies, and I think some others would too. And okay, we won't get everybody, but there'll be enough where the power would shift towards God's existence, a creator. And I don't think there will be an end times. I don't think there certainly will not be an end times the way that's prophesied in the Bible. So I leave that open as a possibility out of humility, because I do not know with 100% certainty that, first of all, that the Bible's true, and which would imply that the earth is flat, and the way the end times will carry out and when, because even Jesus doesn't know the timing of the end times. So if the God of this book is humble enough to say only the Heavenly Father knows, not even the angels know, so only one entity, a central agent, our Heavenly Father, I believe the Creator, knows the timing, the day of the end times. And so it could be 50 years from now, it could be 100 years from now, it could be 1,000 years from now, it could be never. Only the Heavenly Father knows. And so I leave that as an option, but I would implore you to think about the fact that the flat earth being revealed through you and others, your diligent efforts, is for God to wake up his children prior to his return, and it will not bloom, in my opinion, according to the Bible, it will not blossom. Righteousness will not abound on the earth until the mark of the beast is fulfilled. And so after that, the Bible describes that the kingdom of heaven will be established on earth. There will be no more pain, no more poverty, no more sin. Jesus says the causes of sin will be removed. So there will be no need to sin anymore. God will give us things to do, like it says here. Some people will be given jurisdiction over angels. People will be productive. There will be no quarreling, like Paul is describing here. That will be removed. And God will live with us, that we will then know why we were made. And Paul even says in other places that we prophesy in part now, but that's only for a time. And then we will know things fully. We will know why we were made, for what purpose, and we'll be in harmony. I believe that will be an incredible time where exploration, creativity, charity, righteousness, purity will abound, and there will be no limit, and it will be the expectation. Just like here on earth right now, being gay, being atheist, being stupid is the expectation. It will be the opposite of that. It will be being pure, it will be being faithful, and it will be being intelligent will be what is exalted in the kingdom of heaven, which I believe will be established here on earth. And then the Bible says a new heaven will be established on earth, so all things will be purified. So, okay. So, okay. So let's, and this is just to myself, we don't always have to go to the non-believers, the atheists, for everything. We have to interact with them. Hopefully we can win some over, and we have many. I would say I'm one that has been, quote unquote, won over by flat earth. So it's possible. And, I'm sure there's many more. As we speak, people are watching the various information that's out there by everybody. I sent Taboo Conspiracies video to a friend of mine today, and it might be the first time he's ever even thought of flat earth. So I feel like God is waking up his children literally 24/7. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, now therefore there is utterly a fault among you, because ye go to law. I just find it hilarious that we went from unbelievers, who I just talked about, rumpus, and then the next verse, the word utterly was there, because rumpus is the king of using the word utter. So, God has a sense of humor as well. Now, therefore, there is utterly a fault among you, because ye go to the law one with another. Why do ye not rather take wrong? Why do ye not rather suffer yourselves to be defrauded? Nay, ye do wrong and defraud, and that your brethren. So, Paul's getting at something here that is very, very spiritual. There's no way that we should be trying to leverage other people. The Bible even puts the highest ethic as not even trying to leverage your enemies. And so, this is why the system that we have in place right now is satanic, because the leaders of this world are leveraging everybody. Even people that are in potentially their own family, people are bickering and fighting over money every day. And we're all capable of this, but that's why everything, the foundation of this world, everything that it's about is anti-Christ, goes against the Bible. Here, Paul is saying, don't defraud your brethren. Don't defraud anybody. Shavite Jagnarth, good to see you, man. Big up, Prime Source, man. Good to see you, buddy. Sleeping Warrior, hopefully I answered your question, man. We can get back to that at the end if that wasn't clear. Know ye not. This is what I just did a video on, and I would recommend people take a look at it, because to me it again puts us in this time that I feel like we're close to the end of this this age, on earth, prior to the kingdom of heaven being established. Know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of God? ? It's rhetorical. Be not deceived. Neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor extortionists shall inherit the kingdom of God. That's an incredibly long list, and a list of things that all of us can fall into. So we should, as anybody who reads this, God uses these things to get us to introspect. That's what it is. There's nothing mysterious about it. When we read these verses, it is our responsibility as Christians to, or or people that believe that we are God's children, to find ourselves in every single one of those. Even if we're only in one bucket, the Bible says in James, we're guilty of all of them. And so that amount of humility is the very foundation in order to enter the kingdom of heaven. And it does not mean then that we sit there and remain fallen, but that's the start. God cannot work with us unless all of us acknowledge that and acknowledge that to its fullness. And I'm not saying that's easy, but it's good to get in a community of people who remind one another of that regularly, because it's needed, and once it sets in a person's mind and in their heart, to me, beautiful things can come from that. Just the right words, the right disposition, sometimes the when not to say things, and all that kind of stuff. And again, you guys get to see me on the Hangouts. I think I probably come across as one of the meanest people ever. And I am kind of bitter, about things that have happened, and being deceived and all that. I think that's very obvious. But, I think that it's important to practice these kind of things. It's on my mind very, very much regularly. And I would recommend people think about these kind of things a lot. But, we need more and more examples of this in the world, sober-minded, humble, faithful people. And, again, I'm definitely not the best, example, but I do try and be charitable, when I can, with people around me. I think that the beautiful thing that a lot of us have now is the truth, and give it freely. Give it when it's appropriate. I'm not trying to get people to ruin relationships preemptively, but it's a beautiful thing. Stephen Find has mentioned, his sharing his truth and things that he's learned, or even questions that he's asked. Even if it's just simply sharing questions that we ask, can water bend? That's a good thing to think about. It's like, what else is there to think about? What the latest episode of Kardashians? What's Khloe doing, or what's Kim doing? No, put that in some people's minds. Let them think about it. When they're bored, they'll think about it. Can water bend? Can they envision that in their mind? They've never seen it. Can they imagine that? I can't. I cannot. I literally cannot. It would literally require this thing called warping of space-time. And that just sounds stupid. It just sounds like something out of a cartoon or something. So no, heck no. And so, it's a beautiful thing that we can share truth freely. It's free. And, but it's incredibly powerful. You show us the world that water cannot bend, and the whole world would be in a standstill. The entire world would be, we'd stop literally, in our tracks. And in my opinion, at that point, we would not be far from the kingdom of God. And to me, we're getting there right now. So. Okay, sorry, that was a little sidetrack. All these things, right? So all these things we're capable of. I could probably list something from here, in the last month. And so, to me, what we're required to do is to just limit this. I think that's what I have come to grips with in my life, is that all I can do is minimize the amount of sin in my life, and that's it. And because to me, I'm required to, at least to some degree, just to survive. And so I think setting, different goals or different things that, different boundaries around things that we feel comfortable with and we feel would please God, even if they're on a very, very small scale, to me is very, very good. And like I've said, I don't compromise on certain things anymore. None of that stuff, anything around discussing other women, and all that kind of stuff. I think that, pursuing women and all that, I don't think is an evil thing, but I'm more careful when it comes to how I, phrase things and, things related to sexual purity and, which is a form, in my opinion, of idolatry. It's I don't want to even try and go down that road and test that sort of idolatry path, and I think that it takes time, for me, just in the last like couple of years, coming to more and more of the reality that that God is real and the God of this Bible is very, very real. It's a process to kind of undo many, many years of incorrect thinking, but I think just whatever everyone does, even if it's a little bit, God is very, very aware of those things. And I think it's just it's a beautiful thing to do, in every time, but in particular, the days that we live in when there is so much evil. And such were some of you, but ye are washed, but ye are sanctified, but ye are justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and by the Spirit of our God. So this to me is the thing that is becoming very, very obvious for those who are spiritual. It's certainly obvious to me that there are people in the world who are drawn to truth, like I feel I have been throughout my life, and we don't know why. We don't know why. And we're not trying to get anything. We don't even know what we're chasing. I think that's probably the thing that eliminates the conflict of interest so much. We don't even know exactly what we're chasing. We just know what we don't like, lies, and things that don't make sense. We don't like a lack of faith. We don't like selfishness, and all that. We like the reciprocal of these things. And I think that this is a beautiful thing. To me, this can only be explained by what is here, what Paul is talking about, that not only are we washed, but we're sanctified and justified simply in the name of Lord Jesus Christ and by the Spirit of our God. So what does that mean? This is not something we created. This is not something our parents created. This is a spirit that lives in certain people, and we don't know who they are until the mark of the beast is fulfilled. And we're drawn back to God. To me, that's just all it is. We are just drawn back to our home, and it's a journey, and it's a process. And we just hope, those of us who believe that we're God's children, that this journey back can be redeemed. That's the only thing. If I were to summarize really almost all of my understanding of our experience here on earth, whether it's 20 years, 50 years, or 100 years, it's that journey back to God can be redeemed, and he can make it into something more. And that's a beautiful thing. I think that's the only thing that we can ask. All things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. Paul makes a very, very powerful statement. This is why I do not believe very many of the 144,000 are on earth. And that's not a shot to anybody, but people like Paul would not function in a society like this. People like John the Baptist, people like Jesus Christ, they would not function in a society like this, because everywhere we turn, we are asked to worship something else except God. Everywhere we turn, and I cannot harp on that enough. And just be aware of that. And I'm speaking in my own life. Everywhere I turn, every date that I go on, every interaction with a woman, every experience in corporate America, every interaction even with like my family and friends and other people, there's always, even if it's very subtle, request made for us to be brought under the power of something else except God. Even our own flesh, even our own desires, even sometimes our own natural impulse to eat and food and all these kind of things could be used against us. And so we all know this now. I would just say, like I said earlier, prioritize, because it's impossible to get this perfect, but we need to be aware of this. Everywhere we turn, something is going to request that we worship them instead of God. And I'm saying that we don't want to do that, because the Bible says here that Paul says, and it's very, very important. He starts it with, do not be deceived. Be not deceived. And so he's warning us exactly all the things that could deceive us. He makes a long list. He talks about fornication, idolatry, adultery, being effeminate, being a homosexual, being a thief, covetous, drunkard, a reviler, an extortioner. All these things. The entire world right now is essentially a form of extortion. It's a form of theft, and it's a form of covetousness, and just wanting what other people have and taking it. And so through manipulation sometimes. And so that's the foundation of this world. And we, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you think about it, are in this world. And that can stain us everywhere we look, every second of the day. And so that's the world that we live in. And so I think that we just have to be very, very aware of that and know that nothing on this earth is worth it to compromise or relinquish, our position in the kingdom of God. Meats for the belly, and the belly for meats, and God shall destroy both it and them. That's a powerful thing. I think that I just had to think about that for a second, because the need for food and that alone is one thing that can lead us to sin, and just putting us to subjection to this system. Just needing a body, like having to provide food for our body, for us and other people we care about, puts us in a position where we sometimes have to compromise, our faith. And so the beautiful thing about, like I said earlier, in the kingdom of heaven, all the causes of sin shall be removed. This is what Jesus says. Let me get that verse for everybody. So Jesus says all the causes of sin shall be removed. I'll get that verse in a second, but so this, even the very need to fulfill our hunger can lead people to sin, and many times it does, and cause people to get involved in professions that are not honorable, and I think a lot of what's going on in the corporate world right now is not honorable. And so the thing about this, and this is a promise, that God shall destroy both it and them, meaning that, whatever happens in the quote unquote afterlife in the spirit world will not have a dependence on food. It will, those spiritual beings will be sustained strictly by their proximity to God. Now the body is not for fornication, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. And God hath both raised up the Lord, and will also raise us up by his own power. Know ye not that your bodies are the members of Christ? Shall I then take the members of Christ and make them the members of a harlot? God forbid. This to me is a cut to a lot of the Hebrew Israelites, in particular GMS. Their leadership is kind of open about having sex with prostitutes. And like this to me is, again, further affirmation that we're in the end times, because even the quote unquote truthers are lost. These are people who claim to be of the lineage of the 12 tribes of Israel, a righteous group. Paul would be from the tribe of Benjamin. And these are people that are openly saying that, they have sex with prostitutes. and it's scary, and they're on the street corners teaching the Bible. And so this is the world that we live in. If there's no other proof that, the world is defiled, just look at the Christian church, people who are holding the Bible and teaching it. Look at them, and look at me, look at all of us. We are all defiled, and I think this is, to me, again, one of the strongest evidences we're in the end times, is this whole environment is impure. And, I'm not even judging, where they're going to go or what their fate is, but the entire world is corrupted, and that's why I think that there's only one place for us to go, is to God. There's nowhere else to look. You cannot come to my channel. You can't go to the Hebrews. You can't go to your pastor. You can't go to anybody. You can't go to any flat earth channel and get what only God can provide, and so I would just continue to remind people, go to God. Go only care about God's opinion. Everybody else's opinion is retarded. We have Hebrews who are teaching that having sex with prostitutes is A-okay. We have health and wealth preachers. We have preachers, even mainstream Christianity now, not even talking about any of the evils that are going on in the world, which are obvious, being tight-lipped about talking about things that are, again, mainstream. We have all manner of deception, financial, all kind of perversions everywhere, and so truth is very much in a scarce supply. And I think that that's a good thing. Why? Because it should only draw us to God. We should only trust God in these days, because he's the only one that is truthful. And, we have to believe that he's doing all this for a righteous purpose. But if we have any, if there's any lesson learned from all this deception that's hitting us from all different angles, is to go to God, and only trust God. And the hope for all of us is that that never changes. That's a permanent bond. And there's a promise right here where it says, now the body is not for fornication, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. And God hath raised us, and God both raised up the Lord and will also raise up us by his own power. And so we just hope that is final and permanent, if we are lucky enough to be raised up, as it says in verse 14. Going on to 16. What, know ye not that he which is joined to a harlot is one body? For two, saith he, shall be one flesh. So we know that sexual sin carries on, greater and greater meaning than simply just a physical act. And so it's spiritual. And so, again, we don't know the exact consequences for all of our sexual sins, but it's not good. And I'm saying this to myself, like, this is just, again, there's so much temptation, especially as a man, if you're with the, the amount of stuff, even just on sort of mainstream stuff like Instagram and, pornography and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's a one click away, like literally. And I'm not laughing because it's funny, but it's scary, how quickly we can access sin. And things that are just completely abominable to God and hurt us spiritually, even though we don't know exactly how right now. It does, and I think that, again, this is very much, to myself, that, we have to be very, very aware of this and do as much as we can to minimize the amount that we sin in what I believe are the last days. But he that is joined unto the Lord is one spirit. And so this to me is another thing that we can do, and God expects us to do if we want to draw close to him, get deeper revelation, get insight into him and his plan and all that, is he requires purity. The God of this Bible, no one's just walking up to him, high-fiving him, showing up unannounced at his house. That's not the God of this Bible. I'm sorry, we've been fed a lie throughout our Christian walk that God is just looking at everybody equally and just, taking text messages and phone calls 24/7. That's not the way the God of this Bible works. I'm sorry to say that, and I'm not telling you that I have the answer, but we know for a fact that purity, mercy, you have to be a person who forgives everybody all the time. There are requirements to approach the God of this Bible. I do believe he's giving out gifts to many people, as a form of mercy, in these last days, like flat earth and other things. But to get even closer to him, it requires many, many more sacrifices. And I would encourage everybody to do whatever God is inspiring you to do to draw closer to him in these days. Because like I said, these days are completely evil and perverted. Flee fornication. Every sin that a man doeth is without the body, but he that committeth fornication sinneth against his own body. What, know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God, and ye are not of your own? That's a powerful thing that I've been thinking about recently, that ye are not your own. I did not make myself. I didn't make this quote unquote spirit that's in me potentially. I didn't make anything. I didn't come up with this idea of making a Shrag Patel or any of that. None of us thought of ourselves. And so we belong to something else. This is our hope. And all we can ask and do is do what we can to prepare ourselves to reunite, with that entity. I think that's really all we can do. And it's not easy to do. I'll be honest. Like this channel, you will always find honesty. I'm not here, selling anything or the fact that I'm more virtuous than anybody else. I'm literally the same as everybody else, and possibly slightly worse in many, many different areas. But I, like many people who are drawn to this channel and the things that we are kind of binding to in these last days is we want the truth. We don't know why, but we are drawn to truth, and we don't care what gets in our way. I don't care if it's the rumpus, it's whoever it is, it's the government, it's people in our family. We don't care. We will knock those things down. If 1 million people are staring at a building and saying that it's spinning, but we look at it and it's not spinning, I don't care if those people continue to say that it's spinning. We are not on a spinning ball flying through space. That is not happening. That's not even, I'm not even saying that from the Bible. That's just not true. That's absurd. People can tell me that all they want. We could have people on the flat earth or the baller side say that we're spinning, and I'll still find it preposterous. And that's just one of the things that many of us don't care. We don't care about what other people think. And, that's a very, very important trait, in these days. But we do have to do what we can to prepare ourselves for potentially being reunited with the one that created us. And that was not us, and it wasn't our parents, and it wasn't their parents. God did. For ye are bought with a price, therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God. So that's very, very true. What does this reaffirm? This probably is the most important couple statements in this whole verse. Ye are not your own, ? It's rhetorical. It should be obvious, but the Bible says it in a gentle way. And for ye are bought with a price. So we're being reclaimed, brought back to God with a price that ultimately Jesus Christ paid, dying a grisly death on a cross by idiots who killed him just for speaking about love, and mercy and forgiveness. So God has made a lot of retards, idiots throughout human history. And there are many of them here as well. And may we not be one of them, and not add to it. But the price he paid, and it says right here, glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God. So God is the author of everything. God made every single thing that exists. Some people don't like when I say this, but it's just logical, and it's reaffirmed right here, and it's just common sense. God made everything. God made every single person. Everything that exists is an expression of his idea. It's a data point in his mind. That's why I call my channel The Mind of God. That is where we were made. If you want to know why you were made, why you're here, why are you as tall as you are, why do you look like the way you look, why do you have certain strengths and weaknesses, the only answer is to ask the person who architected you and me, and that's God. And that's just what it is. That's what the Bible says here. Even this thing that may carry on after we die, that's not ours either. Our parents don't even want us to acknowledge that. Some of us, I'm not trying to be rude or throw my parents under the bus, but some of our parents will actually constipate our ability to seek God and approach God. So they didn't make that thing that's described here as our spirit. God did. That's God's. That is God. Anything that is spiritual is God, or closely connected to God. And so everything going on in the world right now is God's, and it's for God, and it's for his pleasure. And, may we bring him pleasure, by bringing out truth when it's appropriate, by being charitable, practicing mercy, even for people who don't deserve it. But we have to hold people accountable. We're living in a day right now where there's enough things out there in the mainstream that it's not a conspiracy theory anymore. It's not like, oh, maybe, this might be what's going on. It's kind of a little evil. No, evil has permeated the earth. It's obvious. No one can hide from it. It's obvious. And so religious people, especially people who have a Bible in their hand, need to be held accountable, just like me. The mark of the beast to me is right around the corner. It's not a theoretical thing. It's not everybody's been crying at the end times for years and years. That may be true, but we've never had the technology that we have now. We've never had an electronic device that could go in the body in the mainstream now, and that technology very, very mature, like it is now and has been for a while. And we've never had this much enslavement worldwide. We've never had this much financial enslavement worldwide from end to end, because we've never had a financial system like this before. Fractional reserve banking is a construction, is an idea, like everything that exists, an idea in the mind of God to create an end times narrative, which I feel revolves around the mark of the beast. And only a faithless degenerate would take it and would even entertain the thought of putting an electronic device in their body at the instruction of a satanic government. That's a degenerate. That is a person, even if they're in your family, don't give them any, credence mentally, intellectually. We have to interact with these atheists now to win one of them or two of them over, but we don't take them seriously. If they're not talking about the mark of the beast, they're a little kind of shy about it, or they don't think that it's ever going to happen or whatever, you don't have to, you can believe that it will never happen. Fair enough. But you're not allowed to take the stance and not answer a hypothetical. If it does come out and it's forced, would you take it or would you not? You're not allowed to avoid that question because it's in the mainstream. I'm sorry to tell people that's bad news for you, but it's in the mainstream. So the only thing that's missing now is it being forced. The technology's there. And there's some companies, even in the US, that are having chipping parties. If you look up 3 Square Markets and making it a voluntary thing. But, once you have a large group of people taking it and, it's just the way it works. It's just by influence. It's just by consensus that, will start tipping more towards forced implementation. So again, God governs the timing and all that. I do believe that the so-called second coming will happen first. But again, that's the spirit that's dealing with me. Obviously challenge that and ask questions, and don't take my statements as quote unquote gospel. This is just the way I, put these verses together, correlated with what's going on in the world, and with the sort of understanding from a high level of the spirit of the God of this Bible. And if we're angry about what's going on in the world, God knows what he's thinking. That's just the best way to say it. And I'm not trying to be rude. God knows what's on his mind when he sees what's going on in the world right now. It's complete folly. So that's 1 Corinthians 6. I'll just go through the chat, just see what was going on. I just wanted to get that one verse. Okay, I'll try and find it, but kind of wanted to get that verse where Jesus says that all causes of sin shall be removed in the kingdom. Okay. Mind of Manny, good to see you, man. ETT, good to see you, man, if I didn't say what's up. So, sorry, I'll just try and kind of scan this. Yeah, seek and find. I agree with your point, man. It is a gift. It's not something that we orchestrated. I think I'm very thankful. I would not want to be on these hangouts defending Ball Earth. And imagine if a Ball Earther, imagine just one of them started just spewing stuff against the government, just went on a rant, like all the financial stuff, all the deception, Gulf of Tonkin incident. Imagine all these quote unquote shootings that are happening. There was one recently with 33 encoded in the names again. Imagine if just one of them went off on a rant. The whole hangout would go silent because they'll be like, what is this baller doing? They've lost their mind. Like they're speaking out against the government. So I'm glad I'm not on that side. And thankfully, we are on the side of truth, and hopefully God keeps us on that path because the other path is retarded. Salvation is an offer of adoption as God's children by faith in Jesus who rose from the dead. So I think Bible literalists, we probably have a bit of different understanding. I do believe that people are predestined, like it says here. Certain people have God's spirit in them. They will do certain works that will make it evident that the spirit of God is in them, and they will obviously refuse the mark of the beast. And so, to me, it's those things sort of in concert with one another give us as humans understanding of who is quote unquote God's child. And so some of those things are still to be determined, but in these days we have, whether you think of it as a luxury, to use the mark of the beast as a litmus test for faith or lack of faith. ETT, I don't follow those Hebrews much anymore, like vocab Malone and all that. It's all a soap opera. I would get away from that if I were you. I mean, it's very obvious to me that their leadership are Masons. and they're just lost. I mean, even just reading this passage right here, Paul's saying, how can a person who claims to love God unite themselves with a harlot? And like Tahar at GMS talks about that freely, regularly. I mean, it's just, those people are out of their mind. Um, yeah, man, you keep doing your thing, man. Keep sharing it. Even just planting a seed of like quote unquote doubt, about the shape of the earth, I think is very good. So, I try and share it whenever I can, whenever it's appropriate. Um, yeah, Bible literacy. I'll check out your video on Christian behavior. I'd be curious to see that. Um, okay. Just making sure I didn't sort of miss anything. Yeah, take care, JJ. Good to see you, man. Okay. Yeah, I think I got some of it. Yeah, I think there's examples, ETT, of people in the Bible, even people like Solomon and all that, committing sexual sin. I think that, I mean, there's the stories of the original 12 tribes, like throwing their brother under the bus, Joseph and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things in the Bible, even from people who are righteous, who do evil things. I think that in a way that gives me some amount of comfort. I'm not happy that other people have sinned and like, Peter, rejected Jesus 3 times or whatever, but like, it just shows us that they're human. They're just like us, like, Peter in that situation was afraid for his life, and what did he, he didn't know the full story that we have, or more of the story that we have now, and all that kind of stuff. He was just looking after himself. And, the beautiful thing about the God of this Bible is that for people who are merciful towards others and practice charity and all these kind of things, he is very, very forgiving. He'll look at other things in our life, and he knows very much everything that is around us and influencing us, because he's the one that's doing it. Jesus says, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. He's telling us to pray to the Heavenly Father to not tempt us, because God is going to do that. God is going to put us in situations to test us, to see what we'll fall for, and I hope the people that come by my channel, even if they come through casually, are at least challenged and to understand that the mark of the beast is close by, and to not take it, or at least to think about how evil it is. And then the counter to that is the rewards for those who resist, even if it's with their life. Yeah, me Kang, dude. I'll shoot you an email for sure. You can definitely join, man. It's always good to hear. I'll put Seek on this as well, and you guys don't have to join, but I'll just send an email to everybody in case you guys want to join. Okay. So Mies Kang, you should be getting that to your inbox. Okay, so that's there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of stuff going on in Iran and North Korea, and I think that anybody who's spiritual and at least slightly open-minded to this very, very difficult thing to digest is that God is preparing judgment on America, but fundamentally the entire world. Like all the things that have been happening, even the major floods that happened in Houston not long ago, are just they're supernatural. They're not normal. It's just an insane amount of water that fell. People were taking their boats and sailing over top of their cars, and it was just devastation. It's just of a biblical proportion. It was being said all the time when I was following the news when that happened. And just all the stuff that's going on right now with Venezuela, Brazil, and all these different places where there's so much turmoil. People are struggling to find food. Really, I would say every corner of the earth is in some form of chaos, uncertainty, and financial ruin. Or very much on the brink of it. And so one could think that this is just a coincidence and just the whole world happens to be unhappy at the same time, or this is kind of near the end where God is sort of giving us our last dose of judgment, and then we just hope and pray that it's the last one. We just don't want more. We don't want to see other people get it. It's painful to watch. It's painful to experience, and that is our hope. And I think for me personally, I've had to really, really be more mindful of not wishing bad upon other people. And I think that's where I'm conflicted, because I find myself wanting things to quote unquote collapse. But recently I've been very much trying to focus on not having that thought. I don't want to live another day even just strictly to see somebody else in pain, or the economy collapse or anything like that. I don't want that. To me, that's very, very impure. So I'm trying to, walk this boundary, this very, very fine line of preaching, and especially the end time stuff, which is a little bit, it's challenging because there's a lot of things that are uncertain potentially. I think more and more things are becoming obvious, but preaching things that are very, very destructive and scary, but not wishing evil upon people. So if I'm not doing that well, let me know. But that's what I've been thinking about lately. So, Mies Kang, welcome, brother. Sorry to cut you off, but
no worries. You're doing a fine job, sir. A fine job. Man?
How's your week going, buddy?
Chilling like a villain. Pretty good. Actually, had I'm pleased to say I got my dad with the light bulb moment on flat Earth just yesterday.
Yeah, yes. Tell us about it.
It was like I said, when I first quote unquote woke up, I was like violent with it. Like I would make my own picket signs and walk around the neighborhood with a bullhorn. Yes, the whole
I remember
bit.
You said that in your email, dude, and you made me chuckle, man, because I just could visualize you doing that, and I was proud, man, even though I've never met you, but that's awesome.
I am so incredibly embarrassed about it now, looking back on it, because I mean, I don't live in the best of neighborhoods, so it's people that do not give a shit about any of this, and I would walk around with signs like "Vote No" on One World Currency and shit like that. Yeah, but needless to say, it took me a while, but I eventually learned that approach was not going to go well. So when I came to the flat Earth thing, like I kept it to myself, and like I've mentioned it to him a couple times, but like I for people that aren't seeking these kinds of things, like I feel if I'm going to get them to listen to anything, I'm better off sticking to chemtrails or vaccines or the Federal Reserve or that kind of stuff, just to get them going. But he's my dad. We talk every day, so of course he's going to hear a little bit about it. But we were going shopping, and we had to take a long ride out to this store. So you've heard Owen Benjamin?
Yes, sir.
I was playing him some of that, but I wasn't playing him the flat Earth stuff because my my dad's a rough and tumble kind of guy, so Owen's style, his strong language, appeals to him because it is funny. You know what I'm saying?
He's very articulate for sure. I could, that's useful to share. Sure.
Yeah. Owen's good, man. I never heard of him until the video Dearth did titled "I Don't Want to Be a Flat Earth Person," and just the way Owen picks through it, whether he accepts it or not, man, he is honest about it and really thorough.
Yeah.
And all these ballers could definitely take something from him.
Yeah.
So
dude, can you believe like some people are not questioning anything? That to me is like mortifying, dude. How? Like,
I don't know.
Flat Earth, but like, come on, like, there's enough things out there to be like, second guessing, double check, like
that was my best friend, the youth pastor that I grew up with. He is Sean Hawkins all the way. Like, he won't touch any of it, and he knows me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't understand those kinds of, because like I know 100% for certain he's not a paid government shill. Like, there's no one in his ear telling him not to talk. Like, he's just legitimately not concerned. Like, this man, love him to death. I don't hold anything against him, but like, he can tell you every statistic of every player, of every sports team, every league, every year, like, you name it, baseball, football, he's got it down. Bam, all that stuff. But anything about banking or what's going on in the sky or Mark of the Beast, even the stuff that's in the Bible,
like,
won't touch it. The government loves us. They would never hurt us. God bless the USA. I hear you. I don't get it.
Jeez, dude.
Yeah.
I think that Seek and Find mentioned this in the chat about this being a gift, and we've talked about this in the past, and it's not anything for us to boast. To me, it's just what a normal person would do, quote unquote normal person would ask, and think about and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that this whole resistance to the truth, I don't enjoy it, because you can sense that I get irritated on those calls, but
we all do.
I'm realizing, and I'm trying to be better at using those to become, just use it as a training ground for whatever, God maybe is telling me to try and improve. But that's all I can get from it, honestly, right now, to be totally honest. But
I think that's admirable. I went through kind of the same thing. I deleted my Facebook in like April of last year. Prior to that, for a year and a half, I used it only to talk about truth stuff. Like, there was a 2-year stretch where I didn't use it at all. And when I came back, I deleted all my personal stuff. I still had, a sizable group of friends, but I would only talk about this stuff, 9/11, fluoride, vaccines, anything. It took me a while to come out with Flat Earth, but I eventually did, to all the fun that came with that. But while I was using it, my only goal was to try and reach people that had never heard about any of this, and not even so much reach them, but to understand their psychology, to hone my arguments.
Yeah.
And by the end of that year and a half, I came to the same realization that I just had to focus on what I was doing. Like, there was nothing I could do or say to sway these people. All I could do is, like what you were talking about during the stream tonight, is just minimize the sin in my own life, focus on myself, and then let that stand on its own for them. But as far as getting angry and hostile and coming down on them, it's only going to make us look bad. Like, it's just going to give them more ammo to use against us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I try and, again, I'm not saying I'm being overly strategic, but I try and seed certain verses with things that I feel like I'm wrestling with, just even, which I have a feeling maybe you think about a lot, just knowing you over the past couple months, is like our ability to quote unquote reach people is something we think about, because we feel we have things that are true and we want to share it and all that. And then sometimes we use the metrics that are used nowadays, like number of subs, number of views, and like how many days or hours you've gone out and done all this kind of stuff. But I think the comforting thing, at least about this verse, is that it reminds us that there is a predestination in play, which is kind of scary at the same time, because we may or may not be a part of that predestination. But it's like, to me, all we can do, and this is not to preach to you, but just what I've been telling myself is like, as much as I can, say things that have some information, something useful, something tangible for people to think about, as opposed to a lot of the other things that people talk about and think about in the days that we live in. And like that alone is a major contribution. And like ultimately, we believe that God's children have this spirit in them, as described in verse 20, and they will, it'll light them up and get them, either further down a path or get them out of a path that they don't belong down, or something like that. However, God sort of works it out. But yeah.
Like all we can do is cheesy and unfortunate and as lame as it sounds. Is all we could do is just plant seeds. And man, it took me almost a decade to come to terms with that one.
Yeah.
Like I literally thought, because when I first started out, I didn't believe in Jesus. So I was, woken up to this new fucking ass crazy realm of shit. But I did not have that anchor, nothing. So I was just floating in the breeze. So I thought I could literally hate the world into loving itself. I was just, why do you people treat each other this way?
Yeah.
And just thought, okay, all they need now is to see these things I've seen, and then they'll stop acting like this. Which, that is not the case. So I can't change anything for them. You follow or are familiar with Richie from Boston?
Yes, I used to follow his channel a lot more at the beginning, but I think now I feel like a lot of us are into the weeds, like literally, like objects being constructed, that kind of stuff that we talk about now. Yeah,
absolutely agree with that. Love that dude to death. My wife bought bug out bags from him and like met him in person and did an interview with him, the whole thing.
Right on.
Yeah, but I agree with you. Some of the stuff that he's getting into is a little bit like, dude, bro, okay. But in the last couple of videos, he's been expressing how angry he is and how stressed he is that he can't reach people. And I think I'm being redundant, but I think, yes, all we could do is just do us.
Mm-hmm. What do you make of all this chaos, Mies? Not to put you on the spot, but like what's going? Is it just me, or does it just seem like everything is weird? Like literally everything.
Everything is weird. There's nothing rational about this world at all. I mean, from our perspective, if you're somebody that just wants money and power and sodomy and candy, then this world is great, and that was me for a while. That was what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But then, like, once I started to get a taste of it, dead honest, I thought to myself, because I was just so angry and hated everything, and I was like, fine, if this is the way the world is going to be, I'm going to be even better than all of you added. I'm going to hate you more than you could ever. I idolized Marilyn Manson, and this is all he sings and talks about, is how he's better at this system than everybody else. So I was like, right on. Yeah, this is me. And once I finally started to get there, like, I realized I was going to have no choice first but to hurt people I cared about. And then came to the realization that I couldn't guarantee that I was going to be able to find an excuse every day to maintain the anger necessary to be okay with the shit I was going to have to do to live that lifestyle.
Dude, me, sorry to ask you. I'm just like, you got me in a deep thought, but like, how long have you sort of felt this way where things are just off? Like, has it been on the order of like months, years, or decades, just roughly, where you're just like, oh my gosh, like
that I thought something was wrong with the world?
With the world,
forever. I had the similar situation as you. Like, I thought it was me for the longest time. In school, this is not to brag because, like I said, I'm just a garbage man now. I rejected my formal education, but I was top of the honor roll all through grammar school, and I didn't have to put any effort into it. It just came easy. So they put, be in a different school with more advanced curriculum and the same thing. And in high school, as long as I did the work, I was on the honor roll, no effort, nothing.
Dude, we know you're smart, man. You question everything. That's all we can do. Yeah.
And other kids hate on you for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, I was this bowl cut hair dork that just got ripped on. I was like, what am I doing to you? Like, I'm just coming to school, doing what they're asking me to do. What is so wrong with me that all of you hate me for just this? Like, what is the story?
Yeah.
And from there, knew something was seriously wrong. If you're talking about like big picture of the stuff we're into now, it was like 2006. My best friend at the time showed me Loose Change. I was a little too, I mean, I was like 17, but I was a little too young to fully understand what I had just seen.
Yeah.
But had no question that it was true. But then in 2010, the BP oil spill got me questioning some stuff, and I came across Alex Jones, and it was all downhill from there.
Me too, actually. I started watching him like religiously, literally after work.
Yeah.
I was like, I think it sounds very, very like corny, but like there was literally a very strong inflection point where I realized like, damn, like I just literally internalized everything. I was like, I just never understood why I didn't fit in, and like growing up, I was very much like, not like very much, but like more of a loner. I enjoyed time kind of by myself. I just didn't really feel like I was being creative, and free, even just like to learn about God, and again, I'm not here to throw my parents under the bus, but such a simple thing, like what I've realized now is like the only virtuous thing, to pursue. The thing and I think that's probably the thing that I'm the most bitter about. And I can't be bitter at anybody anymore because it doesn't make sense, because it's not anybody's fault. But like, I realized from a very early age, not just me, I think you would agree, we've all been sort of withheld from God. And it's sad because that's the only pure thing. Like it's obvious now, but it's like really scary that is literally the only pure thing that exists. And a lot of us have been forcefully withheld sometimes from God. It's crazy.
Yeah, fair enough. For me, I was born and baptized Roman Catholic. Did that until I was like 13, and then started going to a Presbyterian church with that youth pastor.
Yep.
But like it was like a kids youth group and stuff. It started off, but it was in a ritzy part of town, which was not where I was from. And like I already from my Catholic days didn't understand anything. I was just going through the motions, but I didn't understand God having a son. There was two of them. It didn't make sense to me. And now I was at this other place that was still not answering any questions, but it was all these nasty children.
Yeah.
I was like, nobody follows any of this. Everybody's saying love each other, be nice, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
No one does this. So thoroughly rejected all that, hailed Satan for as many years as I could. That didn't end well. That didn't go well. So now for me, like, I want that one path, that righteousness, because like I had a good taste of the other side. But it is scary. It is scary.
Yeah. But so, Mies, just in general, you don't have to go into details, but you as an individual through your time, whether you believe it was, very, very dark and very, very evil, you feel like you've had multiple encounters with the supernatural, or is it one in particular that, stands out in your life?
There are like two major terrifying ones that stood out, but like I was into black magic and I was into summoning demons into me. You ever watch any of the like Hollywood or music industry exposed, and there's all the artists talking about like when Beyonce's like, I put my hands up in the air and I felt the spirit come into me, and it just that's what I was doing actively.
Whoa.
All my songs, I never wrote anything. I would just do the rituals and then turn the mic on and just go. And I was doing that before I discovered Jesus and the Bible was true. So I didn't know that what I was messing with was demons. You know what I'm saying? And then even after discovering that, holy crap, this is what I'm messing with, I was still so angry and bitter at God for the world being the way it is, that I just accepted it and kept going for a little while.
Yeah.
Knowing now that I was messing with demons. And so either, I'm absolutely insane, or, it legit happened. So I can only speak for me, but it was enough to take somebody that loved Satan and loved hate and evil and completely flip my life around to where I'm here talking with you.
Yeah. This is kind of like one question I have, sorry, Mies, about that whole thing. Like, how I keep harping on, like, God being behind the major sort of things going on in the world at the macro level. I'm curious about music. How, like, and I've thought about this, like how, like, music, how pervasive it is, how powerful it is in modern day. And really, I believe it has to be supernatural, because only the enemy could create something that is so, able to be appreciated in this sort of negative sense by a lot of people, and use it to, like, literally, like, get them to fall asleep, and I think it is just, I'm realizing more and more, all that stuff, like I've said, that Russian vids brings out, for a lot of us, it's not a conspiracy. It's obvious. Like,
it's very real.
Obvious. Like, these people are not only acting satanic outside of the booth and the studio, but, like, their music is, like, tangibly demonic kind of thing, and I'm not saying you and I are purists and, like, saints, but it's like, this is why I struggle with this whole world right now. A lot of stuff is just mainstream and obvious that it's evil, but we're not allowed to talk about it or bring it out or get censored. So.
Yeah. And that alone should raise red flags. Like, I don't understand how, like, Jose seems like a nice enough guy, but like, it doesn't, like, spark something in his mind that he's gonna lose his channel if he talks about these topics. Like, come on, dude, that right there should tell you there's something going on here.
Yeah, that's why the verse, and not to lecture to you, but just for the sake of just this stream, but when Jesus says the truth will set us free, you and I are free to talk about anything. We don't have to be right. This is what I think is beautiful about the God of this Bible, is, like, a lot of people ask Jesus questions that we're just not up to his level, because he's perfect. So everything will be not as intelligent for him, but he entertained questions very, very humbly, very, very gracefully. And I think that's the beautiful thing. And I would say, is my prayer, is that we can just keep asking questions. We're free to now talk about things from A to Z, obviously when it's appropriate, and not, in any sort of way to slander people or to unnecessarily share things about our life that is not, maybe used against us. But a lot of these people, and I'm not trying to be rude to him, but some of them are just not free.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Whether they're conscious of it or not.
But can you imagine living like that? Like, having a list of things you can't talk about? I honestly wish I could experience that for a day. I'm like, what the hell does that feel like? Because, like, you and I, just, knowing you, like, dude, we'll talk about everything. Like, I literally don't care. Like, if they're not using it against me and they want to know something about my life, my personal life, even, like, my finances, where I see myself going in the next year or two, I'm very open on this channel. And I think that I don't even know how that would function in my brain, to be like, no, I can't talk about Donald Trump or the financial world or, religion or whatever. Like, well, what the hell kind of an existence is that?
Dude, the youth pastor, like, when he and I first came back into contact, it was maybe 8 years that we hadn't spoken. And this is all 100% on me. It was all me.
Yeah.
And when we first started speaking again, we hung out, like, every day, like 4 days in a row. And there was one point where he asked me what I've been up to. And at this point, I was in the midst of seriously going through 9/11. And started to tell him about that, not like because I needed him to accept it, because I wasn't sure, like, myself how deep it went then, because it was just that. I didn't realize there was this whole system behind it. It was just this event.
Yeah.
So I was just telling him the things I was seeing. The first thing out of his mouth was, well, I can't talk to anybody about that. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, these people pay my salary, and laughing.
Yeah.
He's like, if I piss them off, then I'm out of a job, like, chuckling. And I was like, man, like, because he's not a bad person, but, like, there's, as Owen would put it, an extreme lack of logos right there, dude. Like,
yeah.
how, and okay, if you can't talk about it, you're afraid of losing your job, but then you don't personally like want to look to know, like you're okay just shutting that down. I don't know, man. I that is beyond me to consider. Like it almost repulses me to think about living that way.
Yeah. No, I think it's and just to go back to even Paul in First Corinthians, he's like, all things are lawful for me, which kind of gets at he has access to everything, and he's not explicitly saying there that he can speak about everything, but he's saying we all people who I believe that we're free, God's children, we have access to everything. Everything's lawful, and he says, but I will not be brought under the power of any. So we're living in a system, and then we did not create it. And I just try and remind people that to not take blame for the whole ecosystem of evil, because we did not architect this. We did add to it, unfortunately, but we have to do what we can. And again, I'm not saying it's very easy. And I think what I want from these live streams and having you guys on and you sharing your view, Mies, is like walking this fine line of being in an evil system, but not subjecting ourselves to the power of it, like Paul says here in First Corinthians.
Right.
And it's like, I just want to highlight for people out there, this is a bad system to be subject to. It's not even close. Like if it was like slightly close, like, yeah, like most people are happy, kind of complaining. It's for the most part, it's good. It's like, it's bad for everybody. It's bad for the CEO. So to me, job titles and what people do, they don't do anything for me anymore. Like if we hear a musician, I'm trying to avoid them. Like I don't want to jump on me. I want to get the hell away from them. Athletes, if the Kardashians, I'll go to the other side, and I'm not trying to be rude to them, but I don't want to be around these people. And even CEOs, like I've had many, many years at the beginning of my career where I would say they're worship. It's a form of like idolatry. It's like, oh, I wish I could get to their corner office and all that. Now I know these people are enslaved because they're not allowed to tell the truth about what's going on in the economy. So they're like literally just paid to lie. And like, you can't pay me anything, And this is not a moral high road. It's like the world is so stupid. I would say at some point in my life I might have been tempted by that, but there's no way. And I just want people to have that conviction, and even stronger in these days, to not bend or flex for this system. It is absolutely retarded, like utterly retarded, so.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I found most fascinating about you personally. And I was sharing this with my dad on this ride this weekend. Mm-hmm. My senior year, at the beginning of the third market period, I just said, F this. Like I realized this whole system is bullshit. Like I'm going to do what? I'm going to go to college next and get a job to get money to have, for what? This world is crazy. These people are out of their minds. And so I made the choice. I would no longer do any assignments or homework or anything. I would only take tests so I could get the 65 and pass. But that was it. I was like, I am not participating in this any longer.
Yeah.
And you did make it all the way through, but have still come to the same conclusion. You know what I'm saying? That all of this is wrong. And even with all the accolades, and you have much more access to things that I never will because I walked away, you still feel in your spirit this is wrong, and to be a part of it, you just can't. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say?
Dude, I have like 40 thoughts going through my mind, but I want to echo that in the sense that, and I think you will probably see this and I sometimes maybe need to take the foot off the gas on these hangouts. That's why I sometimes get mad at people like Sean Hawkins, even though it's not anything about him personally. I just get angry because in many ways I do feel like my education was a waste, and I'm very angry at God that I literally got duped for that long, and I dove in the deep end, and I was like, I'm embarrassed, and then it makes me even more angry when people then test me on something that I'm embarrassed about, so I get totally angry. And so, I think that I admire people like Red Pill and others like who knew that from a while ago, and this is where I feel genuinely angry at God now more directly. He duped me more than the average person, and all I can ask God is like, okay, good one. You got me, fair enough.
Yeah.
But if you can chill out with that and then maybe tell me why I had to go through all that. And I literally worship school. People ask me what my religion growing up was. I grew up in a Hindu family, but my religion was school. I had a spreadsheet on my computer. I projected out my grades. I tried to come up with all that stuff. Just madness. I wasn't asking questions. I didn't even look up and be like, hey, how far is the sun? Is it roughly 93 million miles away? Not even once. Like, that is to me an embarrassment. And to me, when you look up in that direction, you'll start thinking about other things in that direction, and I think that it's very, very sad. I think that I approached the Bible incorrectly and found God too quickly. I think that this is very much a process. And I really do think that the whole ecosystem right now is anti-God. It's to slow us down. And I think thankfully a lot of us don't buy that anymore. We're just like, hell no, we're going forward. So,
I agree 100%. There's like you can't make any choice without it being like a shade of satanic one way or the other.
Right.
Any move you can make, which goes back to, like you said, trying to minimize the sin. But I do want to say this too. I wouldn't beat yourself up too much about the education thing, because you have assets that a lot of people in the truth movement don't. Like your ability, like even if you come in hot and aren't too happy about it,
a little bit insane. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Your ability to grab what they say and immediately pose a simple for us to understand question that exposes why what they're saying is illogical is amazing. Like yes, it's comical too, but at the same time, you're getting the job done. Like you stuff that it would take me, even if I started right now, years to understand.
I have a feeling you'd pick it up, and I have a feeling you're picking up a lot, just like me. A lot of this stuff I'm starting from scratch. But dude, I got a question for you about this topic. Like,
sure.
Do you feel like, and I really wish honestly that this could be different, this whole debate. Like, I wouldn't really, not that I don't care about the shape of the earth, because I feel like I'm defending it from a biblical perspective, but I actually feel like my strongest contribution is potentially what's going on in the financial world, and how I feel like it's literally devastating people all around the world, diluting our wealth, and all that. But we're not allowed to talk about that. So I'm not trying to slam, Jose's channel, but that to me is my sort of strongest thing, because I work in that field now and I'm sort of handcuffed with that. But like, do you feel like these conversations would possibly not even be necessary, just you from a personal perspective with people, if they acknowledge a lot of the other evil in the world? Let's just put the shape of the earth aside. Let's say, like, I even saw your chemtrail video and like all that stuff. Like, I mean, I'd still talk about the shape of the earth, but it wouldn't be that big of a deal if they would just give us some other things, that are like, to you and I, are obvious that are going on. It's weird.
I agree with that. Absolutely. 100%. I just lost my thought now.
Sorry, man. That was a long question. My bad.
No, that's okay. Like, I guess, like, if we're able, because if we can get them on any of the individual other issues, then they could try and stick to just that issue and say it's not a system. If we can get them on flat earth, then everything else comes under that. You can't deny any of that. But I guess, like, I mean, even flat earth is going to become what the other issues are. They're going to weed it out. You won't be able to talk about it. And I guess it's just what we have right now. But beyond that, I don't think most people would even be able to follow the financial system, like understanding derivatives and all that nonsense. I cannot tell you how long it took me to get my head around exactly what a derivative was and why it was so bad.
They make it sound complicated on purpose, as you can, I'm sure but just that kind of thing.
Yeah. But and still, like, for somebody that's just worried about, I got to make these, as you call them, tokens, so I can come home and go to the grocery store and then watch TV.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't think that, because, man, if they could even understand the basics, they would understand that loaning every dollar to our economy at interest from a privately owned corporation is bad. And if they can't get that, buddy, like, they won't be able to follow any of the stuff that you have to cover on that, which sucks, because what you have to say is worthwhile. But I mean, these people can't even understand that bottom-up obstruction can happen across flat surfaces. So,
but dude, I think your point is bang on, Miskang. It's like if we were to talk about that, they would then have to sort of concede a deception that some of them do actually kind of silently admit, and then they'd have to start going down that trail, and start saying, okay, well, if that person's lying to me about that, well, what about the other thing, and do I have to throw both of them out? So it would be a major issue. But I think even just from what you were saying got me thinking, just answering maybe my own sort of qualm. It's like, we can't talk about the mainstream financial stuff regularly, because then to me it would inhibit the end times from happening, because that financial enslavement, unfortunately, is necessary for the end times to go the way the Bible is predicting, which is just rich and poor, just a group of rich and people not in that club and stuff. So in some ways, the ball earth, flat earth distraction, even though it's very, very important immediately that God exists, to some extent, it to me is kind of a distraction away from even the more day-to-day impacting thing about money, and just how people are just running out of money. Like, I drive around Houston and I just literally can recognize the homeless people now, it's scary, man. And it's really sad, because some of them will walk out on the road slowly, and I'm sure some of them are on drugs and stuff, but they're almost just waiting to be acknowledged. I'm not trying to over spiritualize this. I really do believe some of them are literally standing on the road and want us to stop, even though they're in traffic, just to acknowledge them. This is just really sad, dude. And it's not getting better. That's the sad reality.
Absolutely not. The only way to go on for a non-spiritual person is to just shut down and compartmentalize and pretend they didn't see it, or it's not happening, or distract, like you said.
Correct. Yep.
But even that's unsustainable. It's going to come to a head one way or another. Whether whether it's get chipped in the hand or get your head cut off.
Yeah. It's the scary times that we live in, dude. I think that more and more indication looks that, things are not good. Interest rates are 50-50. People think that they're more likely to be reduced, which from a financial policy perspective means that it'll be penalizing saving money even more. So essentially, people who have money in their bank accounts hurts the people with less more than the people with a lot. But once interest rates go negative, or effectively negative, it punishes savings. And so people are essentially required to push their money into the system. And then that leads to what's called hyperinflation, which a lot of people are talking about daily, more and more. And then these kind of things have happened in human history. And, again, this is a scary thought for even us who believe that we're God's children and the faithful, try to be faithful. The Bible prophesies that famines will hit America if America's Mystery Babylon. And so, again, me and Miskang and others, we're not in this for money. We're not trying to get donations. We're just letting you guys know, if the Bible's true, and it's looking more and more likely that it is, and all this chaos and calamity worldwide is happening, and it's literally from end to end, this could be the God of the Bible speaking to us and hopefully addressing each of us individually. And, it would behoove all of us to reconnect, with the entity that made us. It wasn't our parents, as much as it may seem that way. And they want us to think that, and it's not our company. It's not your boss that owns us or any of that. And it's not Donald Trump. Donald Trump's an idiot. So I'll say that on my channel, so these leaders are out of their mind. They don't care about us. They're mocking us. People think that water bulges. They're mocking us. They know that it doesn't do that. They know that we live on a flat plane, and we're not living on the oceans are not waterfalls, come on. This is just getting ridiculous. But that's kind of a sidetrack.
That's fair. I don't. Yeah, I got nothing. I was gonna make a rumpus joke, but just saying rumpus is joke enough.
It's funny, man. I'm contributing to the gossip, but then I read the comments of Sly's test below, and then Rumpus and Sly are getting into a back and forth, and Rumpus is kind of doing that, I told you so kind of thing. Test was kind of dubious and stuff, and it was just mad funny. Whenever I hear ballers fight, it's bad, but it's for whatever, it's evil of me, but it warms my heart, because I'm
that's all right. That's how I feel about Tim Osmond. I know that he is a total troll, and he knows that he's bullshitting when he shows his pictures and is look, this is obstruction, blah, blah, blah. But man, when he goes after like the non-sect crowd or fight the flat earth, that stuff is so funny. I can't handle it. And I feel bad while I'm watching it because like I'm gonna know this is wrong. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing, but damn, it's funny.
Who do we have defending Ball Earth? We have Rumpus, who's like just everybody's an idiot machine.
Some dude.
Yeah, we have Brenda, who no one even knows who she is.
No.
Carlos wants us all killed. George, no one knows what's going on with him. He just looks like he maybe needs like a long nap or just woke up and tired or something. It's just crazy, man. Like we just have a bunch of people who no one knows who they are, why they're in the chat rooms every day, what's going on. They're not allowed to talk about the government, which is evil. And when they do, it's like barely, like it's like a little burp, if that. And so like I'm literally like, it feels like a bad movie, Mies King. It feels like a bad movie, man.
Like we have no idea, and I don't say this like to be mean, just being real. Like we have no idea who's like somebody that's completely no fault of their own, like strung out on fucking antidepressants or pills from their doctor, or if there's someone who is legitimately and honestly mentally deficient, like somebody that is just. But here they are, like just the name and a voice, you know what I'm saying, getting taken 100% seriously by everybody. You know, we don't even know like if they're honestly capable of understanding what we're saying. You know what I mean?
Jeez, dude.
Like, because there's no way to know like if Rumpus really means what he says or is just doing it because like he's an old grumpy guy and gets off on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we know that when we start getting to like things that are true, they either come back with an idiot or they just go on mute. They go silent. So, I mean, there's too many of those reference points that it's making it obvious. And I just wish it wasn't, because I wish we could talk about normal things and just, we can talk about the reality around us, the physical reality, but also the economic one, the political one, the all those kind of things. I mean, like, it's blatantly obvious. And the thing, even amongst us now, even we have the luxury within the quote unquote church is like, we can say that a lot of the stuff inside the church is ridiculous, and I want to distance myself from that too. So it's like, I don't know. It's like literally like, I don't know. It's not like we're just defending religious people, and like we're the only ones that are good. No, like even amongst our house, there's a lot of really, really strange stuff. Cause like a lot of times atheists could use that against us, and, we'd have to blush a little bit, and be like, yeah, maybe you're right. But now it's like, no, hell no, I agree with you. All of those people who are stealing money from people, don't care about the poor, the community, don't talk about the financial enslavement. I don't want anything to do with them either.
So, nope.
Yeah.
And none of that has anything to do with the God of this Bible or anything that any of us have to talk about whatsoever.
Correct. Agreed.
Yeah, buddy.
So, sorry if I hijacked, anything you wanted to share. If you have any, thoughts or directions you want to go, let me know.
No, that was about it. I got my dad on the thing. Oh, I wanted to say too that I agree with you that you said like if all of a sudden the Ballers started being amicable to this whole thing instead of acting like retards, it would weird you out. I agree with that. And there are a lot of times where once I finally get someone new to see one of these issues, I start to feel really bad. Like, damn, like I just shit on this person and dump this on them. Did it ever happen to you?
Wait, say that once more. Sorry, repeat that.
Like if I'm talking to someone new who's never, like, say they go out flat smacking or something like that, or I don't do that, but if I'm talking to someone new about flat Earth or whatever, and they finally have that light bulb moment and start to see that there is a deception, there's a part of me that feels bad now that I know they're going to have to go through all this doom and gloom before they get to the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's like sometimes it is like it's weird, man, because like we almost feel like we're bringing people bad news, when it's true. And it's like a weird feeling, man. And it's like I've had to get over the fact that just being uncomfortable with that, and I think it's been more of a wrestle with myself. And this is where I feel like a lot of this is God working things out with us, within us. And, just and it's funny that you said that, because I was literally looking up the verse in Matthew where God asks us to acknowledge him before men. And I'll read that if you have a second really quick.
Yeah.
I think that inhibits a lot of people, because we know, and again, I'm not saying that we're martyrs or you and I deserve some kind of like Purple Heart, but like the stuff that we do, it's not normal, like
No.
we're not going to be the most popular. We're not going to get 50 million people giving us a pat on the back. We're going to go to work and I'm going to be embarrassed. Like sometimes, like I told my boss about Flat Earth back in the day, and he looked at me funny, and we had a weird lunch conversation, and then he would, send memes once in a while as a joke, and it was kind of tongue in cheek, but it was awkward, because like they know that I believe that we're not spinning, and like that's not a minor thing. Like I'm not saying chemtrails are not important, but it's not like something like that,
Right.
that is done, but like affects us, but maybe like in a more long-term sense,
Right.
But this is like when the world stops spinning, literally, it stops spinning, and like a lot of things have to be questioned about everybody, and it's awkward. And I think that it is an inhibitor, to share the truth. But I think in these days, when again, I think this is, like it's a weird sort of mixed blessing. The deception's so obvious, we'd literally not be able to talk about anything if we didn't talk about it.
Yeah, I used to want so badly for other people to be like the whole thing, like you were saying, like the reason that we do this is not for money or for attention or because it makes us feel good. It's like, dang, people deserve, if any of this is true, if any piece of this is true,
Correct.
Other people deserve to know about it.
Yeah.
And beyond that, even if all of it is false, you and I claim to believe the Bible, and the Bible commands us to tell other people about this.
Agreed. Yeah, that's well said.
Right, but at the same time, like it's like taking a toy away from a small child. Like, their delusion, as delusional as it is quite comfortable. And okay, I have a second job. I there's a friend of the family, an older woman. She owns a bunch of property, so I mow her lawns.
Nice.
On Sunday, so I spend all day doing. And I started talking to her about flat Earth, and I told her, I was like, I can't imagine what it feels like to have someone half your age come and tell you, hey, everything you've believed your entire life is wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I feel bad, but at the same time, feel like I would be doing her a disservice if I didn't at least mention it, or at least let her know that I believe it, even if it ends up all being nonsense.
If someone blows you off, Miss K, what are your initial thoughts? Like, are you like, you're not bitter, right? You just kind of know that it's just not for them at
this point, it doesn't even affect me in the slightest. Okay. I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, it's like my mom still gives me just a blank stare. Like, that's it, nothing.
My dad could take the positives. I just like,
that's kind of rough, man.
I was like, do you want to help me come up with a list of that right now, or like?
That is funny.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a pretty typical Indian parent response. Again, they're not evil. Concentrate. I would say I'm much more like shady than my parents. Like, they've lived a pretty pious life, but I think that this is why I think the truth is so beautiful. It compels us, and we don't know why. Mies King's on a speaker, and in his neighborhood. I'm a fool. If people read some of my emails that I sent back in the day when I quote unquote first became a Christian, people would reply to me like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, I would cringe if I read some of those emails, because it was like, you need to trust in Jesus, like a sinner's prayer and like all that. I was like, I sipped the Kool-Aid, double sucked it. And I was blurting it out to anybody who would listen, and like, again, I think it's all for a purpose. I just wish that I did a lot of that with more patience, and, just knowing that it's not my responsibility or your responsibility or any individual's, even Jesus's individual responsibility to propagate the truth. It's fundamentally, now more than ever, it's becoming very, very obvious. There's a certain spirit, there's a certain desire in people to ask questions, like big picture ones, and they're placed in our minds by God, because no other person or entity on this earth and this is not preaching to anyone, this is just for myself, like would require us or even tell us to think along those lines. You know, they don't want us to look up to the sun and question its distance. They don't want us to question why our sky's blue and it looks like it's not that far away and stuff like that. You know, like they don't want us to do that. And again, it's God's mercy as much as it was him, you know, behind this deception and humbling us. I feel like it is a gift to be awake, and I would not want it any other way, because it is mortifying to be on the other side. Like, you know, I'm not saying that to be rude, but I'm like, I'm already struggling with being on this side. This you know, small amount of truth, but I still feel very important truth. I can't imagine what it would be like to be somebody who's in this system and just lost, you know. And I think all we can do is hope that they receive truth and receive comfort that there is a bigger narrative at play, and you know, it's for a righteous purpose.
Yeah, that's all we could do at this point, man.
So, Mies, I'm going to end on this verse, buddy. It's I always appreciate you coming on, man. I know you got a lot of things going on in your life and all that, so just your feedback in any form, man, is always appreciated. And you know, if you have any final thoughts before I read Matthew, this is all yours.
It is incredibly edifying and refreshing to speak with you, as always. I appreciate it more than I'll ever be able to say.
Yeah, I have a feeling our paths will cross on some chat box somewhere, you know, in the meantime.
Yes, sir.
It's a huge
All
week.
right.
I don't know how much you follow golf, but it's a big week because Tiger's playing in New York. And so, you know, as a golf fan, I'm pretty excited about that because he won the Masters, and just to see him back and playing golf is kind of cool. So we'll see what happens. But
I know as much about golf as Sean Hawkins does about making sense.
I have no issues. I want to clarify my beef with Sean too. I don't make fun of his GPA because of the number. I make fun of it because he comes trying to lecture us about things that we already know, and or just know that it's wrong. And so again, I'm not trying to come on this high horse with people. I just do get offended when people, you know, just certain people know more than others about certain things, you know, like that's just what it is. And so
no wrong with that.
He doesn't know more than any of us. That's just what it is. So, you know.
All right, man.
All right. Yeah. Take care, Mies gang. See you, brother.
See you later.
Take care. So I'm going to end off with Matthew chapter 10, 32. Whosoever therefore shall confess me before men, him will I confess also before my Father which is in heaven. So Jesus here is saying that, you know, he is the vessel. He is the entryway, the pathway, the channel, all these different terms, the intermediary to the Heavenly Father. And so he says here, whosoever therefore shall confess me before men. It's very important that he says whosoever. Him will I also confess before my Father which is in heaven. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I have not come to send peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me, he is not worthy of me. He that findeth his life shall lose it, and he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. He that receiveth you receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me. So if any of us are ever ashamed of the God of this Bible, he will be ashamed of us. There is no reason to be ashamed of an entity who came to earth talking about mercy, love, forgiveness, being charitable, and worshiping God. And he died a grisly death on the cross at the hands of the very people that he was there to sup with. This is not a God to be ashamed of. This is the only thing that we can run to in these times and cling to, because there's nothing else. There's stupidity, there's folly, there's all types of perversion that we have all contributed to some degree, but there's nothing going on here. You know, this is the only God that you can run to and, you know, be proud of, you know, and really trust in the days that we live in. And so I would encourage people to, you know, seek God. Hope everyone's doing well. Bye.